Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo
Bhagavate
Vasudevaya. So
Vasudevaya.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees, thank you very much for joining today. Like to seek your good wishes and your blessings so that we can continue with the 7th canto. We're on chapter 4, overview of chapters 4 and 5 today. So I wanted to seek your good wishes, your blessings so that we can continue. And also seek the blessings of the spiritual master, His Holiness Krishna Swami, and our Shiksha Guru, eternal Shiksha Guru, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who very kindly translated this Bhagavatam and also gave us these Bhaktivedanta purports, which are so important to help us understand what the Bhagavatam is explaining. So let's go into, this is a very nice verse, 38th verse of the 4th chapter. Asina prayatan astanan sayana prapiban nanu sandata etani govinda parirambita. Kamakshi, you'd like to read?
Yeah, thank you. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Prabhupada ki jai, Guru Maharaj ki jai. Translation. Prahlad Maharaj was always absorbed in thought of Krishna. Thus, being always embraced by the Lord, he did not know how his bodily necessities, such as sitting down, walking, eating, lying down, drinking, and talking, were being automatically performed. Very good.
Yes, amazing. He was so focused and absorbed in the Lord. These things were just taking place. The Lord was doing them actually. So this is real absorption in Krishna consciousness in a positive way. Okay, so we ended the situation where Hiranyakashipu, this chapter is called Hiranyakashipu terrorizes the universe. And if devotees recall, yesterday he completed his austerities and Lord Brahma came and asked him, what do you want? And then he described all the different boons that he wanted. And Lord Brahma, he gave them. Lord Brahma gave all benedictions requested by Hiranyakashipu, even though they were difficult to obtain. Right? Those he did such tapasya that Lord Brahma was in some way obligated to grant him those benedictions, even though Lord Brahma knew that this fellow isn't quite, his head isn't quite right. He's going to misuse the benedictions, but he still gave them. And Lord Brahma then departed for his abode, being praised by the sages. So wherever Lord Brahma goes, he actually is accompanied by sages, Bhrigu Muni and so many others, and they're always praising him. Material benedictions are exactly not worthy of being called benedictions, for they could become curses. So this is something that we can learn from this pastime. Just as it takes great endeavor to acquire those boons, it is difficult to maintain them as well. Thus, although Hiranyakashipu attained great boons from Brahma, they are still not attained because of the problem of ego. When we get these boons, we think we are so powerful, we can do anything we want, and that leads to pride and arrogance. And then we start looking upon others as inferior or enemies, and then we get into all sorts of dualities from which comes good and bad karma. And if we got pride, generally leads to bad karma. So sometimes we think we have great material wealth that's come as a result of our tapasya in our last life. And unfortunately, it can be a curse if one, if it leads to false pride. Not just material wealth, but also material like qualifications or ability can make us very proud. I did this. It's my wonderful effort. But of course, ultimately, everything depends on the Supreme Lord. He sanctions everything. Hiranyakashipu conquers heaven. after this, Hiranyakashipu became the conqueror of the entire universe. So he displaced even the Devatas. He lived in Indra's palace, which is described as follows. So we're going to have a look at the heavenly planets and especially the residence of Indra. The steps leading to his residence were made of coral. The floor was decked with invaluable emeralds. So it's very opulent in the heavens. Hence why the demigods are very attached to that opulence. They like it. The walls were of crystal and the columns of Vaidurya stone. The wonderful canopies were beautifully decorated. The seats were decked with rubies. The silk bedding, as white as foam, was decorated with pearls. The ladies of the palace were blessed with beautiful teeth, and the most wonderful, beautiful faces walked here and there in the palace, their ankle bells tinkling melodiously, and they could see their own beautiful reflections in the gems. So it's quite a nice place, but this is nothing compared to Vaikuntha. And Vaikuntha is nothing compared to Golok Vrindavan. So even whilst in Vaikuntha, Lord Vishnu, he takes any excuse to go and see Golok Vrindavan, to see the abode of Lord Krishna, and he becomes attracted even by that. So quite interesting. Yes, Naniben.
Yes, Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
The ladies and other people living there with the Indra, they were like exalted people who were previously on this material world, and then they transferred to the Indralok.
Yeah, essentially done fantastic punya karma on earth, and then now they're reaping the benefits of that. That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
So once it's all over, they will come down to the earth.
Back again to earth once the good karma is finished. Yeah, but they never get old. What happens, I think, is the garlands that they wear, they wither. So they actually never, they never actually see old age. They never see old age. They don't see disease either.
No.
But that's the problem. Because they're always happy, they're not going to really have Krishna in their mind. This is the biggest problem that they face. Does that make sense? Because we have so many difficulties, so many issues. And that is because we're living on earth where there is Shashvatam Dukhalayam. This place is full of misery and temporary. But heaven, it's delightful. No disease, no old age. So you forget Krishna very, very easily.
How do they die then?
The garlands get old, and that's the sign that they're going to leave the heavenly planets.
Okay.
And then when it rains, they come down in the Atma comes in those raindrops, and it's described that those it enters the grains, and then through eating the grains, the man will produce sperm eventually, which will be injected into the womb of the lady, and they'll take birth.
Yeah, very nice. Thank you.
Interesting.
Yeah, so basically, once the good karma finishes, that's basically when they have to leave heaven.
Yeah.
And Haribol, sometimes doesn't the demigods hanker to get out of the demigod places and want to be a human form so that they can do that tapasya again?
Absolutely. They aspire for that if they've got any sense. Usually that happens when they've just been beaten black and blue by a demon like Hiranyakashipu. They approach the Lord, and usually in that mood, they will be praying, wish we were in heaven, on earth, so that we can always remember you. So, but it doesn't happen often because, as we can see, it's so enjoyable. this is just a description of how they live, or the palace where they live in. But actually, there's far more enjoyment. They have beautiful lakes, and they can mix with the other sex and enjoy unlimited companionship. It's actually very entangling. You wouldn't ever want to come out of that scenario, but unfortunately, you're forced out. You're forced out.
It's like being on holiday 24/7
Mhm.
or 365 days a year.
Yeah. And the problem is, when we leave this body, we would travel in, or hopefully anyway, we won't go to Yamraj, but we would, having done some spiritual activities, we would go towards the ultimate destination. And on the journey, we would see these heavenly planets. And if we have any attachment for them, we would go there. As soon as you think, wow, that's nice, you're transferred from that divine aeroplane. You go straight into that heavenly planet and you enjoy there, and then back again onto Earth. So we have to be really transfixed on our
Goal.
Krishna Lok. Anything that comes in the way, just keep the eyes closed, keep the nose shut, ears shut as well, and just pray that the Vishnu Dutas take us very fast to the destination, ultimate destination. Otherwise, if we linger and have a look around, sightseeing, we'll get caught, more than likely, by the temptations in these other worlds. So something to look out for in the future. For no reason, he chastised the demigods severely. Although he was always drunk, everyone was forced to worship him. Although Hiranyakashipu was abominable, all but the three principal devatas, Brahma, Shiva, and Vishnu, personally worshipped him to please him by bringing him various presentations with their own hands. And look at this. Narad Muni himself and the other sages all offered prayers to him again and again, just to glorify him. So you can see what sort of personality he was. Very powerful. Even Narad Muni submitted to him. So it's no mean feat. Hiranyakashipu's reign of terror. Instead of offering oblations to the demigods, Hiranyakashipu accepted them himself. The earth, being scared, delivered food without being plowed. The cows, frightened of Hiranyakashipu, gave milk, and out of space were beautifully decorated. I'm not sure if that out to space. Anyway, I can't remember what that means. The oceans gave jewels. Hiranyakashipu directed all universal departments himself.
And outer space was beautiful.
Outer space was beautifully decorated. Yeah, thank you. Well done. All universal departments, he controlled them without any help of the demigods. He was so powerful. And although master of all opulences, Hiranyakashipu was dissatisfied because he was a servant of his senses. So this is the whole point. We may have everything in this world, and we have everything, right? We got a roof on our heads. We got food on the plate and in the fridge, right? We got a bed to sleep on. We got clothes to wear. We've actually got everything. But our mind is going to convince us that we need one more thing to make us really happy. But problem with that one more thing is, as long as we get it, we realize that's not the one thing I need to be happy. I need something else now. So this is the problem with material desires. They're endless because we're always trying to satisfy our senses. And Hiranyakashipu, unfortunately, was no different. Although he knew the philosophy, he had the wealth and the control and the power, but he couldn't control his own mind. So, And unfortunately, we are little Hiranyakashipus in this world. We may not have so much power or can do so much tapasya, etc., etc. But we're also a little bit demoniac, and that's a problem for us. The demon and the devotee is in one body. So we have to try to control the demon and bring out the devotee. Demigods approach Vishnu, Lord Vishnu, who reassures them. Without sleep, fully controlling their minds and living on only their breath, the distressed demigods meditate on Lord Vishnu. So why should we worship the demigods when they themselves worship Vishnu for protection? Right? It makes sense. Why do we worship demigods? Because in Hindu philosophy, Devata worship is prominent. But they themselves worship Vishnu. So doesn't that give us some indication that they're not the supreme? The Lord spoke to the demigods from the sky, asking them to be patient and reassuring them that he would surely stop Hiranyakashipu's reign of terror. When Hiranyakashipu torments his son, Prahlad, who will be peaceful, without enemies and a great devotee, the Lord will appear and kill him, despite the benedictions of Brahma. So these are comments by Sukadev Goswami to Parikshit Maharaj. And this is sometimes what happens. They go to the Shvetadvip, the ocean of milk, and they pray. Lord Brahma usually is the one who prays. They all pray, but Lord Brahma is the one who usually gets the darshan and the messages. And they pray with the Purusha Shukta prayers at this time. Beautiful prayers from the Vedas, glorifying the Supreme Lord. He becomes very pleased with them and he will answer their prayers. Okay, so Naniben, yes. Any questions? You've got a comment. Demigods worship, so we get our promises fulfilled quickly. Sorry, what do you mean?
Yes, what I meant that people worship demigods. They want any boons, they will get fulfilled quickly.
Faith in what?
Anything that we ask for, anything that people want, for their desires.
Okay, yeah. So
Yeah.
Why do demigods are worshipped? So that, and it's not a bad thing in one sense. At least they're worshipping somebody,
Yes,
other than themselves. And as you said, they get something, and actually in one way, as soon as they get it, it's a little bit of faith is added to their psyche that, they do answer prayers. They do answer prayers. But the problem is, it doesn't go beyond that. We get stuck at that level that, if I pray to them, they'll give me. So we just keep praying and they keep giving. But in the Gita, Krishna says in 7:23, Antvattu phalam tesam, the demigods' fruits are temporary and limited, and one who prays to the demigods goes to the planets of the demigods. So we're stuck in heaven. And then he says, those who pray to me, they come to me. That's where we want to be. But if somebody is praying to the demigods, at least they've got some faith that there is somebody beyond themselves who are doing things.
and I think, isn't it said in Gita as well that Krishna says that he gives them the strength and the wisdom,
Yeah.
so that they continue praying. As you said, they're praying to the demigods rather than to the demons. And then eventually something will happen in their mind that they will turn towards Krishna, some way.
Yeah. He says that, and he also says, don't disturb them.
Yes,
Let them carry on. But we don't always follow that instruction. Yeah.
There are more demigod worshippers in India, at least.
Yeah.
Than
Definitely.
Krishna worshippers.
Yeah, definitely. Because Lord Shiva, especially, he's well worshipped. Some devotees worship him as like we would, that he's the greatest Vaishnav, and and we worship him to get closer to Krishna, but mostly worship him for some material.
On his own. On his own.
Durga
on his own, yeah.
And
Durga Mataji, yes.
yes, and Ganesh. Those are the three most prominent.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Hanuman sometimes.
Mm. Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
Hare
Krishna.
Yes, Madhusudan.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, a nice description of the heavenly sort of planets and the palaces in Indra's palace, bedecked with jewels and all that. And in terms of that, there's an incident that happened when I was teaching and looking after some of these young offenders in the place where I used to work. And then there's a certain young boys from a certain mazhab, like Muslim faith, and they were talking amongst themselves, and one was sort of describing how, in their indoctrination and all that, they describe some of the things like the heavenly planets. They think that when they do whatever they have to do, like take a few coffees with them or blow up a few places, and then they get rewarded with martyrdom. They go in the heavenly, and there's a lot of things awaiting for them. So they think anyway.
Mm.
And the funny thing is that I just sat there and listened to them, and I said, they were describing how it is in the next life. If they do whatever they do, then and then the funny thing is, one of them said, yeah, there is all these things there, there's unlimited things you can eat and all that, but there is no such thing as shitting and going to the toilet. And I said, so what happens there then, What do you do with that? That was their version of sort of understanding that they don't have to do anything like going to toilets or anything like that in heaven. And I started laughing. I thought, this is their version of understanding what awaits them, if they go. And it's a bit funny, but here when we're understanding what it actually is, and the Lord Indra and how Hiranyakashipu has taken over all these things. But amazingly, it's not the place where we want to end up really, because just unlimited kind of pleasures, but there's no such thing, like you say, there's no kind of challenges or difficulties or disease or old age to make us realize what material world is like, then we opt out to sort of make a choice, or at least, have to get out of this material world. Otherwise, we just keep tangled up here, So anyway, I thought I would share that a little bit.
But they also believe that heaven is the ultimate, isn't it? That's it, nothing else.
That's
beyond.
it. Yeah, that's it. That's what they get rewarded with, But there's nothing. But they don't realize that it is actually just within this material world. Though there's no such thing as a spiritual world to them. That's it. That's
beyond,
the ultimate, isn't it?
Yeah. Good point.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you for sharing that. Let me just pause this for a minute. Okay, so chapter 4. Wait, I thought we did 4. I must have got the title wrong. Hang on a minute.
No, this is just 3.
Oh, sorry. It carries on a bit. Okay, yeah, we haven't finished. Good. So Prahlad's good qualities. Hiranyakashipu had 4 sons, right? And they were all quite good, actually. They were all good. And the best of them was Prahlad, who was a reservoir of all transcendental qualities. Because he was a pure devotee of the Lord, his qualities are described as follows. This is so nice. And these qualities are discussed again. And I remember Guru Maharaj would go through these again and again and again, as would Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with Gadadhar Pandit. He was completely cultured as a qualified Brahman, having very good character and being determined to understand the absolute truth. He had full control of his senses and his mind. like the super soul, he was kind to every living entity and was the best friend of everyone. So this is really rare. This is really rare. This is achieved by those who are in Uttam Adhikaris, those who are in the topmost platform of devotion, because that you're equal to the super soul at that level. Just like the super soul is equal to all, he was equal to all. To respectable persons, he acted exactly like a menial servant. To the poor, he was like a father. To his equals, he was attached like a sympathetic brother. And he considered his teachers, gurus, and older godbrothers to be as good as the Supreme Lord. He was completely free from unnatural pride that might have arisen from his background. Right? And what was his background? He was the disciple of Narad Muni. Can you imagine if you were a disciple of Narad, would you hide that? You'd be very proud of that. But he had this unnatural pride about him. Unlike the other asuras, he was never envious of Vaishnavas. He was not agitated when put into danger. And he was neither directly nor indirectly interested in fruitive activities given in the Vedas. Indeed, he considered everything material to be useless, and therefore he was completely devoid of material desires. He always controlled his senses and life air. Being of steady intelligence and determination, he subdued all lusty desires. So these were his qualities. These were extraordinary qualities in a little boy. From his childhood, Prahlad was absorbed in Krishna consciousness. Being always embraced by the Lord, he was unaware of how his bodily necessities were being automatically performed. A little bit like Narsi Mehta. I remember hearing so many pastimes about Narsi Mehta that he would have so many duties to perform. He was married with young children to marry him themselves. And his wife would often say, go and get this so that we can, get these children married, etc., etc. But he would just always be engaged in bhajan. And the Lord would come and fulfill all of his duties because he was so engrossed, absorbed in his Krishna consciousness. So in the same way, Prahlad was so absorbed in Krishna, he was not even aware how his bodily necessities were being performed. Automatically, the Lord would come and feed him or bathe him. Whatever needs to be done, he'd get it done. Bhakti is unconditional. Although born in demoniac family, he had no danger from bad association. So sometimes we say, it's just my bad association. But actually, if you look at the association of Prahlad, he met his guru just once in the womb. Never met him again. And yet he was a pure devotee, became a pure devotee. So we have so much association of different gurus and different scriptures, but yet we still remain absorbed in material consciousness. So this is a fantastic example. How we can be devotees like Prahlad, even whilst in the midst of this material world, everything that's going on around us. So we shouldn't think that we're not capable. We are capable. And the Lord will help us if we make the effort. His symptoms of ecstasy are as follows. So this is how he used to be always absorbed. He sometimes cried when his mind was agitated due to the Lord's absence. So he felt the Lord's absence all the time. But sometimes when he didn't, he would cry. Sometimes he laughed upon seeing the Lord again. Sometimes expressed jubilation upon thinking of the Lord. Sometimes sang loudly due to intense love for the Lord. Sometimes upon seeing the Lord, Prahlad Maharaj would loudly call in full anxiety. He sometimes lost his shyness in jubilation and began dancing in ecstasy. Sometimes fully absorbed in Krishna, he felt oneness and imitated the pastimes of the Lord. Sometimes feeling the touch of the Lord's lotus hand, he is jubilant and remained silent. His hair standing on end and tears gliding down from his eyes because of love for the Lord. So this is pure ecstasy. These signs are one who is in pure love of God. So he's just completely absorbed. But unfortunately, his father mistreated him. Hiranyakashipu tormented his own son simply because he was a great devotee. Now, Yudhishthira was shocked. How is it that a father could want to kill his own son, who was such a well-behaved boy? So he asked that question of Sukadeva Goswami, how is this even possible? So that's the end of chapter 5. Any 4. Thank you. Any questions? Any comments?
Prabhuji,
Yes.
did he see the Lord while he was in mother's womb? Or did he
That's a good question. I don't think
so.
so. I haven't read anywhere.
So he became a devotee
In the womb. Because Narad Muni preached to him. And that is described actually in, I think, chapter 7. That is described in detail.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, not the Lord. Never saw.
Not the Lord. I believe that it was Narad Muni's instructions to his mother, which he was listening to.
Yes, I remember that. Yes.
Yeah. So he became completely convinced.
Haribol? Yeah, the fetus does have the memory from the past as well. So I suppose it's alert as much as one would expect it to take it all, whatever's been preached.
Yes. Yeah.
Indeed.
Yes.
Like Guru Maharaj used to always advise ladies, right, who had children, who had babies in their womb, that you should read or listen or watch Ramayana, because the child will get the benefit.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's very common. That's very common practice, actually.
Common practice, yeah.
All over, yeah. Even here, ladies do that.
Yeah. That's right.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Just a question. Who was Prahlad Maharaj before what was his previous
He wasn't actually a great devotee in his previous life. I can't remember the exact details, but I remember hearing a class one time. Somebody said his background, and it wasn't what I expected. He was like almost like a common person, but he did a couple of really amazing things. And that's why he got this blessing of association with Narad Muni. We'll have a look. If anybody knows, please do speak up. Otherwise, we'll have a look, and hopefully tomorrow or in the next couple of years, we'll get back to you.
Thank you, Hare Krishna. I'll have a look as well. Thank you.
But yeah, no, it's a good question. But I was really surprised, actually. I was expecting, so that actually gives us hope. Gives us hope that anybody can become a devotee, a great devotee. Anybody can become a great devotee.
Yes, it's a good example. Yes. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay. So unless there's anything else, we can move forward. Yeah. Okay, let's do this verse. This is the 5th verse of the 5th chapter.
Shipaladuvacha Tad Sadhu Manye Suravarya Dehinam Sada Samudvigna Diyam Ashad Grahat Hitvatma Patam Griham Ananda Kupam. So Andakupam Vanam Gato Yaddarim Ashreyeta. Prahlad Maharaj replied, O best of the Asuras, king of the demons, as far as I have learned from my spiritual master, any person who has accepted a temporary body and temporary household life is certainly embarrassed by anxiety because of having fallen in a dark well where there is no water but only suffering. One should give up this position and go to the forest. 1. More clearly, one should go to Vrindavan, where only Krishna consciousness is prevalent, and should thus take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
So this was one of the first, oh no, not one of the first, but Hiranyakashipu asked him a question and he answered like this. What an amazing answer, right? Telling his own dad, you should go to Vrindavan, where Krishna consciousness is prevalent, and take shelter of the Supreme Lord. He was fearless. Okay, Prahlad Maharaj, the saintly son of Hiranyakashipu, chapter 5. So Prahlad attended the school of Sanda and Akarma, Marka, the sons of Sukracharya, the spiritual master of the demons, where he was taught about politics and diplomacy. However, Prahlad did not like to hear about the duality of oneself and others, or there were friends and enemies. He didn't like that. He wanted to treat everybody equally. So if he found out, well, his dad, he had many enemies, so he would say to this father that actually you shouldn't have any enemies. You should treat everybody equally. There's no such thing as friends and enemies. Everybody's a spirit soul. Once his father took him on his lap and he asked him, what was the best thing you learnt in school? Prahlad said, material life is full of anxiety and everyone should give it up and go to Vrindavan to take shelter of the Supreme Lord Krishna. So this was the verse that we read. Such amazing advice. He's telling his own dad, you're just too much in material life and you have too many anxieties. So give it up. Hiranyakashipu, of course, expected something pleasing to hear. He was only a 5-year-old boy, so he would have heard something like, Dad, I like to play chess or something, something, or I've learned about how 2 + 2 = 4. But nothing practical came out, right, or from Prahlad's mouth. He was surprised to hear such profound words from his young son. He was shocked. He was so shocked, he advised his teachers, Prahlad's teachers, to protect his son from this bad association with Vaishnavas, because this talk was that of the followers of Vishnu. And Prahlad's teachers, they took him back to school, they pacified him, asked him, who has taught you this nonsense philosophy that you told your dad? You put us in very bad light in front of your dad. So your intelligence has been polluted. Who taught you this? Now, Prahlad's teachers, they were also very astonished to see this boy could speak such exalted philosophy. The other boys in the school, they wouldn't speak like Prahlad. Prahlad was extraordinary. So they would inquire about him. Who's taught you all this? So that they can arrest that person and kill him. So Prahlad instructed his teachers that a real Pandit does not make distinctions between enemies, friends, and himself, since everyone is an eternal servant of the Lord. As long as one adheres to the philosophy of duality, thinking one person a friend and another an enemy, he is in the clutches of Maya. Spiritual thinking is to be friendly with other servants of the Lord and appreciate their service and not be proud of one's service. So this is really important. Spiritual thinking is to be friendly with other servants of the Lord and appreciate their service, not to be proud of one's own service. If we're thinking, I'm doing the best seva, then we got a problem. But we can see others doing seva and think, he's also doing nice seva. There may be apparent competition amongst the servants, but there is no envy. Everyone is allowed to serve the Lord to the best of one's ability. So this is important. If we are envious of somebody, we will want them to stop serving because we don't like them pleasing the Lord. But actually, everybody is a servant of the Lord. Their natural inclination is to please the Supreme Lord. So if we get rid of that envy in our heart that somebody else is serving, let them serve nicely. Let me not get in the way of their service. Let me admire the way they are serving. It may be different from the way I serve, but let me admire them. Prahlad explained that the Supreme Lord has given him the intelligence to take the side of their so-called enemy, the side of Vishnu. As iron attracted by a magnet stone moves automatically towards the magnet. Prahlad's consciousness, having been changed by his will, Krishna's will, is attracted by Lord Vishnu. And thus he has no independence due to the attraction to the Lord. So this is really deep philosophy. And he's giving it to teachers. He's a 5-year-old boy. Prahlad's teachers become angry and chastised him. Again, they attempted to teach him about the paths of religion, economic development, and sense gratification. And then after some time, the teachers had Sanda and Amarka, they taught Prahlad, they thought he was fully educated in the science of politics and diplomacy. And then they took him before the father. One day, Prahlad's mother had personally washed the boy and dressed him nicely with sufficient ornaments, and they presented him before the father. So this is really interesting stuff. This is probably the heart of the Bhagavatam. Again, Prahlad sat on his father's lap, and his father asked him to tell him the best thing he has learned from his teachers. Prahlad then explained the 9 processes of Bhakti Yoga to Vishnu. Here's the verse. Shri Prahlad Uvacha Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam Pada Sevanam Achanam Vandanam Dasyam Sakyam Atma Nivedanam Iti Punsarpita Vishnu Bhaktis Chennava Lakshana Kriyata Bhagavati Adhatan Manye Aditam Uttamam. Who'd like to read the verse? Anybody like to read?
I can do it, Prabhuji.
I will if nobody wants to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go on, Nanivan.
Okay.
Yeah, no, Nanivan.
Thank you. Okay. Translation. Prahlad Maharaj said, hearing and chanting about the transcendental holy name, form, qualities, paraphernalia, and pastimes of Lord Vishnu, remembering them, serving the lotus feet of the Lord, offering the Lord respectful worship with 16 types of paraphernalia, offering prayers to the Lord, becoming his servant, considering the Lord one's best friend, and surrendering everything unto him. In other words, serving him with body, mind, and words. These 9 processes are accepted as pure devotional service. One who has dedicated his life to the service of Krishna through these 9 methods should be understood to be the most learned person, for he has acquired complete knowledge. Hare Krishna.
Very good, very good. Thank you so much. So this is one of the most quoted verses in the Bhagavatam. Shavanam Kirtan Vishnu Smaranam Padasevanam Achanam Vandanam Dasyam Sakyam Atmani. Very important verse. So he gives it to Lord Vishnu. I mean, sorry, Hiranyakashipu. And the reaction, he became very angry. He chastised Prahlad's teachers for teaching him devotional service to Vishnu. The teachers, they were shocked. They've never taught him this. They claimed their innocence. And Hiranyakashipu turned to Prahlad, asked him, where do you get this knowledge? Prahlad replied, materialistic gurus like Sanda and Amarka are like the blind leading the blind into a ditch. So they do not understand that Lord Vishnu is their real interest, goal of life, and thus become entangled by the strong ropes of material nature, suffering 3-fold miseries. The only way to become attached to the Lord who destroys unwanted things is to smear one's body with the dust from the feet of his devotees. So, really amazing instructions. Sometimes this Sanatana Dharma or Hinduism, we have a tradition of taking a family guru who may be the family priest, but he's not a real guru. That's just the family priest. He may have, but he may not have any spiritual knowledge. And we may not have any connection with him on a spiritual basis. The connection is just material in one sense. He is the family guru, so he gives us the janoi or whatever it is. But actually, to get spiritual knowledge, one needs to take spiritual initiation from a bona fide guru who can give the direction of travel towards the spiritual world. Very important. Very, very important. So when he's saying about materialistic gurus, they can simply lead in the wrong direction. Blind leading the blind into the ditch. The only way to become attached to the Lord is to smear one's body from the dust of one's lotus feet. So the angry Hiranyakashipu threw Prahlad off his lap and instructed his servants to kill him immediately. Although Prahlad is only 5 at the time, he was very young, he had given up his affectionate relationship with his mother and father. So he was a really amazing soul, amazing soul. He knew his father is not going to be able to help him. So he gave up any ties with them. And there we go. Hiranyakashipu, envious of his own son, throws him off his lap. Therefore, Hiranyakashipu did not consider Prahlad trustworthy, thinking that Prahlad may not even behave well towards Vishnu. If a limb of one's body is poisoned by disease, it must be amputated so that the rest of the body may live happily. So he wanted his son killed so that because he could not control the boy. That's interesting. Very, very interesting. Okay. So sometimes this happens, and only when you must be, of course, knowing very well. Sometimes the hand becomes poisoned or the leg becomes poisoned. You have to cut it out, amputate it, and the rest of the body can exist properly. Otherwise, it can poison the whole body. So this was the thinking of Hiranyakashipu. This boy, he's a devotee, he's going to corrupt the whole family. Let me kill him. So really very bad thinking. Then the demons, they tried to kill Prahlad by striking him with tridents, throwing him under the feet of big elephants, throwing him among huge, fearful snakes, employing destructive spells, hurling him from the top of a hill, conjuring up illusionary tricks, administering poison, starving him, exposing him to severe cold, wind, fire, and water, throwing heavy stones to crush him. So many different ways to destroy him. But in no way could they touch Prahlad. And Hiranyakashipu fell into great anxiety. Hiranyakashipu then became morose, thinking that Prahlad was immortal and he would be punished for his offenses to Prahlad. At that time, Prahlad's teachers said to Hiranyakashipu that Prahlad was nothing but a child and cannot be a cause of anxiety. So they were trying to pacify Hiranyakashipu. Don't worry, we'll sort him out. We'll give him some good association, our bad association. After all, his bad or good qualities have no value. They suggested that they should arrest the son with the ropes of Varun until their spiritual master, Sukracharya, returns, who will be able to change his intelligence. So in that way, they convinced Hiranyakashipu to give them another chance. Sanda and Amarka systematically and unceasingly taught Prahlad Maharaj, who was very submissive and humble about mundane religion, economic development, and sense gratification. He did not like their instructions. So they kept teaching him about ordinary religion, economic development, sense enjoyment, but he was not interested in any way because he was humble and submissive to his spiritual master. During playtime, Prahlad told his friends about the futility of materialistic life. All the children were very affectionate and respectful to Prahlad Maharaj, and because of their tender age, they were not so polluted by the instructions and actions of their teachers. And we see this when we go to school, especially the 8-year-olds. They're so amazing, not quite polluted yet by all the worldly things around them, and very open to spiritual knowledge. Thus the boys surrounded Prahlad Maharaj, giving up their playthings, and sat down to hear him. Their hearts and eyes being fixed upon him, they looked at him with great earnestness. Prahlad, although born in a demon family, was an exalted devotee, and he desired their welfare. Thus he began instructing them about the futility of materialistic life. So that's the end of chapter 5. Is it 5? 5, yeah. Is it 5? We did 5 and 6, right? Must be chapter 6. Okay. So, the lesson so far. Is that right? 5.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, 5.
Yeah, because we only did one on
Oh,
Monday.
yeah, you're right. Yeah, good.
Only 2
Good,
yesterday.
good. Yeah. So, any questions before we go to the lessons and the instructions? Okay, let's. Indra Maji, you'd like to go through the lessons?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna, everyone. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Lessons from Canto 7, Chapter 1. The Supreme Personality of Godhead exists within the heart of every living being and is prepared to give bhakti yoga to everyone, but one must be capable of receiving it. Chapter 2, since our consciousness can be changed by spiritual education, we simply have to carry out the order of the Supreme Lord to become free from the influence of the modes of material nature. And chapter 3, after long austerities and penances, one may obtain mystic powers, which eventually are vanquished, but the powers obtained by the mercy of the Lord are never vanquished. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. And Madhusan Babu.
So Haribol, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Oh, good.
Haribol, yeah. Let me get. Yeah. Just looking at the instructions, I think we'll go chapter 3, which we did yesterday. So I'll go through that. Like Hiranyakashipu, we may also seek benedictions and try to gain some position, which can only come by long austerities and penances, mystic yoga, meditation, and so on. So these kind of benedictions or any big positions or material opulences, we just can't get it just like that. We got to perform austerities, tapasya, and all that. So, like even to get some good education, you got to do a lot of tapasya. Go to school for so many years and listen to teachers and do all sorts of things just to get GCSEs. So, but these can become a curse and can get vanquished easily, but the powers obtained by the mercy of the Lord are never vanquished. So anything that the Lord wishes to grant us as benedictions, I mean, if Lord, Vishnu had granted these to Hiranyakashipu rather than Lord Brahma, who himself was never in a immortal position. So that would have been more of a benefit to Hiranyakashipu, but that's not what he wanted to do. So we have to be careful. And Srila Prabhupada in chapter 4 instructs in the purport that one cannot understand anything spiritual from a materialistic scholar puffed up with academic knowledge or anything like that. It's stated in the Bhagavad Gita, Bhaktya Mama Bijanati. One must try to understand Krishna by devotion service and from a devotee. Therefore, Yudhishthira Maharaj was quite right in wanting to learn further about Prahlad Maharaj from Sri Narad Muni. So approaching the right source for the right knowledge is of more benefit to us. And otherwise, we will still be left in the dark. Chapter 5, whatever benedictions and opulences one may acquire can start to dwindle when the Lord's devotees are oppressed or harassed and Sanatana Dharma and Krishna's teachings are not upheld. such was the outcome for Hiranyakashipu upon attempting to kill his own son Prahlad Maharaj. So these are, instructions for us to understand that ultimately, Sanatan Dharma and the civilization which is based on that from India is the oldest. And luckily enough, we are in the position to understand that a bit more. Hopefully, in Bharat verse, we're lucky that Guru Maharaj always emphasized that we should call India Bharat, not India. Don't call yourself Indians, you are Bharatiyas. And so he kind of tried to make us fix within the Sanatan Dharma. So thank you. Haribol.
Thank you, Prabhu. That's really good. Okay, so let's chant the Nrsimha prayers. I think Karuna will struggle. So Indulekha Mataji, let's pray for Karuna.
Yes, Karuna.
No, she still struggles. Yeah, let's pray for Karuna to get better very quickly.